guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, don't forget to click that subscribe button as well as click that like button if you like this video and want to see more of my content. So today we're going to be talking about Dahmer, which is the new Jeffrey Dahmer series that's on Netflix. It's a dramatization of like some of the events that may or may have not have occurred. I was told for the most part that they got most of the details right in the show, but they did have to kind of spruce up some of the things that happened to make it entertaining, I guess. But basically, I'm gonna talk about the show and like my opinions about it, and kind of if I feel like the show was kind of insensitive to the victims' families, or if it's just actually a really good show that depicts, maybe warning signs that you could look for, and how people should take accountability for their actions, etc., etc. And by people, I mean the police. But yeah. So I want to get into that. And grab a drink or something. I'm going to be drinking some coffee. I got this, what's it called? The Apple Crisp Macchiato from Starbucks. As you can see, sure everybody know the logo. It's my free little birthday drink. Yes, today's my birthday, period. Shout out to all the Libras out there. But yeah, so we're gonna get into the video. First off, when I heard about it, I was thinking, okay, I don't know if we should keep seeing all these serial killer shows and stuff like that, because it kind of glorifies it. Like, you kind of feel like, okay, well, if they're gonna keep making all these movies and shows about the same ones that we've already heard of plus newer ones, then who's to say any random person who might be interested in doing stuff like this, or who is already doing it, who's to say that it's not gonna give them a driving force to continue or to start doing things like this, because it'll make them famous. Like, not in a good way, but some people are weird like that. They're like, you know what, like even the guy who killed John Lennon, he literally killed him because he wanted to be known, he wanted to be famous, which is fucking crazy because I can't even remember what his name is. But people are weird and very sadistic and everything. So I was kind of like, okay, so that's kind of the bad part about making so many films about the same exact thing. I'm pretty sure everybody has heard about him at this point, because when he committed his murders and everything, that was back in like 78, and now it was like from 78 to about 91, like those years in between, he killed 17 people. They all were boys. Some were African American. There was like a Asian boy as well, and a few white guys and everything like that. And then majority of them, if not all, were homosexual. And so you could already feel like, well, this is probably why the police weren't really trying to solve these murders and trying to, put a stop to anything, because the thing about it is that, like, the way how the world is, it's just like people don't care about the gays. They don't care about any of that. They're like, oh, y'all doing y'all thing, whatever. Ain't nobody look for you. And the thing is, in some of the people's cases, they were people that nobody was looking for them, or like they had like a troubled like past or whatever. So it was easier to kind of get away with those murders. But as we had seen in the show, some of the people, they were very tight-knit with their family and friends, and like someone noticed pretty shortly after the murder had occurred that something was wrong. So it's just kind of like the police really could have did their job and investigated properly. Like in one of the episodes, the Asian boy, Conrad, he was a teenager, and they sent him back to Dahmer because he said, oh, well, that's my boyfriend, so it's fine. Like, they didn't really care to notice that he was drugged up, he was out of his mind, like, he couldn't even really do anything. Like, and I'm just like, come on now. Like, you're not even gonna investigate this scene. Like, maybe if it was a woman, maybe they would have been like, oh, let's see what's going on, especially if it was a white woman. Like, let's be real here. They probably would have investigated and be like, hold up, something don't seem right about this situation. But they didn't really give a fuck. And I didn't watch the full show, I'm gonna be honest. So the first episode was with Tracy Edwards, I believe is his name, and he was one of the people who did get away. He's the person who actually was able to get Jeffrey Dahmer turned in, thank God. But you don't know this at the beginning of the episode unless you maybe looked up all of the information, because I think they said his name in the show. So basically what happened with Tracy is that, you know, they went back to the house and he said, oh, we're gonna take pictures, and Tracy tried to leave. Once he started noticing shit was weird and he was like, oh, there's like some stuff in my drink, and then Dahmer was like, oh, it's just some dish soap. And first of all, I was like, first of all, if there's some dish soap, go wash it out then. Like, what you mean? I'm not gonna drink this. But I mean, it's a show, and it probably, chances are, like when he was putting stuff in people's drink, it didn't look like as obvious as some of the drinks on the show were. But you know, I mean, it's Netflix, they gotta make stuff be entertaining and whatnot. I'm gonna keep using air quotes, but you know, so basically with Tracy, when he was trying to get away, you know, Jeffrey came out with the knife and everything, was basically forcing him there. And he, you know, he seen he was in danger. And once he was able to run away and everything, I literally was like so relieved, because that entire episode, I was like nervous. Like, I really just was like, bro, I don't know if I'm able to watch this show. Like, this is too much. Because it's like, it's one thing if it was just a fictional show completely, not based off anything at all. And it's like, okay, well, this would be interesting to look at. But the fact that it was actual people that this happened to, and these actors are just trying to convey, like, the situations and everything like that, I kind of felt like, oh, damn, like, I kind of feel guilty looking at this, to be honest. Like, I don't know. So, let me take a sip of my coffee. I kind of felt guilty looking at it, to be honest. And so once I realized, you know, Tracy was not the first victim. He was the last person who would have been a victim. Thank God, because so like the show, what they basically did, they kind of like skipped around and did this, did that, whatever. I don't know, like after Tracy, if they showed everything else that was in the exact order that that Dahmer committed the crimes and stuff. But I got to about, so I seen the first episode, and that was like giving me chills and shit, and I was uncomfortable. I was watching with my boyfriend, and I was just like turning away at the times where I thought Tracy was gonna get murdered. So literally, then we just start looking at the second episode, and it's going back to like when Dahmer was like a kid, and his dad was, you know, he showed him some roadkill, and they started going into like taxidermy and trying to do this and that, a bunch of weird shit. And we had seen that, you know, his mom and dad were always arguing, and like they were extremely toxic. And, you know, I think they had said something about how like the mom, she was taking whatever prescription drugs when she was pregnant, so that might have altered, you know, Jeffrey's brain and everything like that. Because, I mean, you can't just be taking anything when you're pregnant. Like, but some days went by, and I was like, yeah, you know what, I think I'm good. I don't think I'm gonna watch the show. The first episode kind of like, I don't know, it creeped me out too much. Like, even though it was a happy ending because the man was not killed and Dahmer was being arrested, because they found the evidence. It wasn't even on no hearsay. Like, they found the evidence to get his ass in jail. Like, he was going for sure, because they found the skulls, they found a bunch of different organs of the victims. They found the random pictures and stuff that he took of everybody, like the passports or like slash like IDs and stuff of everybody. So, you know, he was going down for sure, but I was still creeped the fuck out. So then I got down to like at some point I was talking about, like, came home from work, I was talking to my boyfriend, he was watching the show. And then I was like, you know what? I kept like trying to look at the TV low key. And so I think this was like maybe episode 5, episode 6. And it was an episode where there was like a hitchhiker, and I didn't, you know, I didn't get to see fully of the episode because I ended up like going to take a shower and stuff, but I could hear like what was going on. And since I had only really seen the first episode, I didn't know if they were gonna like really show like what was happening to the victims, or if they were gonna allude to okay, this is how he got them to the house, this is them trying to get away, and then, you know, he murders them and then they're dead and the aftermath. But turns out, like when I actually sat down and was watching episodes with, how did he get down? I had, so I'd seen like the last few episodes of the show. I ended up realizing that they weren't showing the victims being brutally murdered, because we heard the details about what he was doing to the people and everything, but like, you know, he was a cannibal and everything, and so he was dissolving their body parts into acid, and that's why like the neighbors would always be like, you know, the house stinks, like what is that? He was like, oh, it's some pork chops, you know, they went bad, da 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 da. But it's like, okay, so how long does it take to get rid of the smell? It don't take weeks and months and years, like you know. So that's why like the neighbors were all like, some weird shit is going on in that house, we just don't know what's going on. So that's when I found out that they weren't showing like the gruesome details, which that's what I was scared. I didn't want to see that. Like, I really didn't even want to watch the show. But when I seen that they weren't doing that, I was like, okay, so this isn't too bad, because, you know, it is depicting like the weird stuff that Jeffrey was doing, and it kind of like gives you signals of like, okay, watch out. It kind of like warns the public, like, okay, this person was acting this way, they was doing this, don't turn a blind eye to this thing, whether in the victim standpoint or like the people who was around Jeffrey, who like he never tried to harm or anything like that. Just kind of see like how he interacted with people. Just, you know, it kind of gives you an insight on like what to look out for, and like not just think like, oh, well, he's just weird, ha ha ha. Like, no, something was seriously wrong with this man. Like something was messed up with his brain, because with his victims, like he, like in the episodes that I saw, he would be like, you know, don't leave me, don't leave me. And I was thinking, okay, so I think why he probably kills the people is because he had abandonment issues, because there was a point where Jeffrey was kind of left alone. You know, like his mom and dad, of course, got a divorce and everything. But there was a point where he was left alone, and he kind of felt, maybe he felt like, you know, nobody loved him, or like nobody wanted to be around him or whatever. And so he felt like he would never come back to him. So he's like, well, I'm going to kill you before you cannot come back to me. I don't really know. I mean, they tried to study his brain and everything, but then the dad, at least in the show, I don't know if this is what really happened, but in the show, they were like, the dad didn't want them to investigate the brain once, you know, Jeffrey died and everything like that, to see, which I'm like, bro, I feel like, why would you not want to see if like maybe there was a region in his brain that was messed up? I don't know, like I just don't understand why they wouldn't want to, and why he wouldn't let them, like it was a school, it was like a university that wanted to investigate this so they could learn, and like, you know, he was like, no, like his whole body's supposed to be cremated, he wanted it to be cremated. Remember how I feel about it, who gives a fuck what he wanted, because he murdered a bunch of people's, their brothers, their sons, the boyfriend, classmate, whoever. Like, who gives a fuck what he wanted to do with his body once he was dead? Like, that's the part I didn't get. It's like, I understand you're his father, but like, bro, like, read the room. Like, it's not about him at this point. So like, he doesn't deserve that sympathy, but whatever. So I was watching the show and stuff, and I had seen on Twitter that a lot of people kept talking about Tony. And so when I seen Tony's episode, honestly, I cried, bitch. I ain't gonna lie. Like, that shit was sad, because they showed his whole life story, and he was trying to make it as a model, try to do this, try to do that. But turns out that part was dramatized a lot, because apparently Jeffrey never like had whatever bond with Tony or anything like that. Like, it was played up a lot apparently. So I wonder what actual events did occur with him. But in the show, they were showing that, you know, Tony and Jeffrey were kind of like having this relationship. I don't know, like a for sure relationship, but they were definitely getting to know each other. They were starting to have feelings and everything. And he would go back to see him and stuff when he would go see his family. And even like after he murdered Tony, he held his hand. And I was like, well, you got feelings. Like, why'd you kill him? So like, that's why I really wondered, like, what really actually happened in that situation. So I was like, he's gonna spare him. He's gonna spare him, because there was 2 people who survived, at least to our knowledge. There's 2 people who survived Dahmer. And actually, like, before I ended up seeing more of the show, I was just looking up some stuff, and the other guy, his name was like Ronald, and so that guy, he, you know, he basically got saved by the grandma in a sense, because back when Jeffrey was staying with his grandma, you know, he was still killing people, still, you know, sneaking them to the house and then putting them in the cellar and doing all this weird shit. Wouldn't let his grandma see anything. And so, you know, on the show, they showed that his car had, that Ronald, his car had broken down, and basically Jeff came around, was like, hey, like, I can help you, let's go to my house, I gotta go get my car, and then I could drive back and I could get you jump and do this, do that, blah, 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 blah. I live really close by. And so he took him to the house with his grandma, and he was just, you know, Ronald immediately was like, I'm not here to chill and do this and do that. Like, I'm here so I can get my car fixed and go to work, because like, my night's over. Like, I'm not trying to still hang out. And then Jeffrey kept being like, oh, just have a drink, do this, do that. He was like, bro, I'll just take a coffee. Like this is not a hangout, bro. Like, I don't know why you got me here right now. And so at some point, he drugs Ronald, of course. And then the grandma was like, he don't look too good. And so that's why she came down and checked on him. She was like, no, he need to go to the hospital. Part of, like, they said, like, you know, how he got to the house, and, you know, him being drugged and then all the other stuff in real life. We don't know, like, what had happened exactly. They said something with him and his car was messed up, but exactly how it showed in the show might not be really how it happened. But he did end up in the hospital. He did end up with a bunch of, like, bruises and this. So I guess maybe Jeffrey was tussling with him. And then, you know, the grandma might have came downstairs, helped him out somehow, some way. He ends up being in the hospital, and then he told his story. And both in real life and on the show, did go to the police, tried to tell them what happened, and didn't really do anything. Like, they quote unquote went to go talk to Jeffrey, but then he was easily able to just deny everything. And I'm just like, but y'all are cops. People are gonna lie to you. Like, why would you just believe, oh no, this guy's crazy? Because how many people is going, like, let's say it this way, how many men, for sure, is going and say, hey, this man assaulted me, this man drugged me, this man, you know what I'm saying? A lot of people aren't saying that. Like, you know, it's, so I'm just like, why would you not even believe that in the first place? If they investigated properly, if they gave a fuck about people, and it doesn't help that some of these victims were people of color, it's just another reason why they didn't really care to figure out why these people were missing, or why is someone making a complaint about Jeffrey. Like, even with Tracy, when he went to the cops and stuff on the show, I was like, they not finna fucking believe him, honestly, because they thought he was on drugs, which technically he was, but, you know, against his will. So I just kind of felt like they were gonna he was gonna be able to continue to kill people, because they were never gonna believe him, because there's a bunch of people of color dying. So, you know what I'm saying? So it's just really sad that, like, had they did their job properly, he could have killed way less people. It could have been caught him. It's not like he was hiding it either. Like, this stuff was in his house. This stuff was always in close vicinity to where he was at. So it's just a slap in the face to the victims and their families. And so one of the ladies who was the sister of Errol Lindsay, I believe, she made a statement, and she was on some stuff like, honestly, I don't respect the fact that this series was made. Nobody who's part of the families of the victims was contacted about this, at least not them specifically, was not contacted about this, that the show was being made. So it's just really messed up that Netflix is essentially profiting off of their tragedy. They're gonna make all this money. They didn't try to give them a check. They didn't try to do anything, and so it's disrespectful. And that's one of the reasons why I didn't want to watch the show, because I kept seeing all of this information that made me feel like, should I watch this or not? So yeah, that's basically what happened. The show, I feel like, oh, so I'm missing a part. So basically, you know, Dahmer, he goes to jail and everything, and he was in jail but he got caught in 91, and in 94, you know, he got murdered. Like, I was surprised that he didn't get the death penalty, to be honest. But they gave, like, so John Wayne Gacy, I think, like, the time when Dahmer actually, like, the same year Dahmer started killing is when John Wayne Gacy got, you know, he was taken into jail because they found out that he murdered and, like, tortured, like, I think they said, like, 33 young men. So basically, it's crazy because in the show they showed that John Wayne Gacy was given a death penalty, and he officially died when Dahmer was, like, you know, getting baptized, and there was a solar eclipse, and it was like a very crazy scene. And this is something that actually did happen. It wasn't even just for Netflix, like, it actually did happen. So Dahmer was in prison, and he was asking one of, like, the pastors or whatever his actual title was in the jail. He was asking them, like, you know, do you think God will forgive me, like this, that, and the third? And I feel like that was a whole bunch of BS. Like, call me crazy, you know, you can say whatever you want, but I feel like him randomly, after so many years, he's talking about, like, oh, you know what, I'm gonna turn to the Lord and I'm gonna be saved and da-da-da-da. I thought it was a little bunch of BS, because you do not get to sit here and freaking play God and kill a bunch of people for your own sick game to make them living zombies, just so you be like, oh, well, you know, I changed and I'm godly now. Like, no, you don't get to do that. It's just like, he could have got help for his thoughts. Like, he said he first started having thoughts about harming people and doing this and doing that when he was 14. He had his first victim when he was 17. So in that time, he didn't say anything to anybody to try to get help. He didn't do anything to stop himself from really not murdering people. Because yeah, he said, oh, I tried to stop for a little bit, but then what made him randomly start again? And then why did he never, I don't know, go to a therapist? I don't know, turning himself in for the first few murders. Like, I'm going to admit I did this, so that way I don't get the worst thing. And he claims he wanted them to give him the death penalty, but I'm just like, no, I don't believe any of that. So he claims that, oh, he got baptized. Christopher Scarver, he was one of the inmates. I meant to look up what he was in for, but he ended up murdering this other guy who, like, stabbed his wife in the face. I think they said he killed the kids too. I can't remember, but I know he stabbed his wife in the face multiple times, so he killed her. And then, well, we know what Dahmer did, obviously. So when he seen Dahmer was all on some shit like, oh, I'm turning to the Lord now, I'm religious now, he was like, well, I'm religious too, and I feel like God is telling me that, like, I need to take down this evil. That's what he had said or whatever in the last episode. And he had, like, this whole little speech and everything, and he basically was like, God sent me to use me as a vessel to basically take you out, because you think you can be forgiven just because you got baptized, and that is not this is not the case. It's not gonna work like that. Like, and so when he kills him, they showed him actually being killed. Like, when Christopher had, like, the little, they were in, like, a workout room. They were all supposed to be in there cleaning up and stuff. And when so he killed the first guy, and then he had, like, this metal bar, and he had a speech, and then he started, you know, hitting Jeff and everything, and, you know, he beat him to death, and he was like, I think he'd asked them. He was like, so I read up your story and everything. And Jeffrey was like, well, you know, I gave the people drugs so they wouldn't feel the torture. He didn't do that shit so they wouldn't feel the pain. He did that shit so they wouldn't run away. Like, duh, the fuck? So then Christopher was like, well, you gonna feel everything I'm about to give you right now. And I was living for it. I don't feel like you could be a born again Christian just because you're quote unquote repenting if you do some stuff like that. Like, it's just certain stuff that I feel like is just not forgivable. Murder is one of them. If it's self-defense, it's self-defense. You know what I'm saying? Like, I really like the fact that Netflix, I feel like they had enough respect for the victims to not show them be brutally murdered, just to allude that, hey, this is what happened. We're not gonna show you all the gory details. We're not gonna. Now, I didn't see all the episodes, so it could have been an episode where they did show like in depth what happened, but I feel like they probably didn't because I've seen a few episodes of the victims and that's not what happened. So let me know if I'm wrong. But I do like the fact that they showed Jeffrey's actual murder, because you do not get to do things like that and just think you're gonna be forgiven just so easily. Like, he did not have any regard for these people. He could have stopped at any point. He didn't have to coerce them to go to his house, lock them in the house, drug them, do this, do that. He didn't even know these people. It's not even on some revenge against somebody. He didn't know. He was a complete strangers that he just decided, hey, I'm gonna kill you tonight. I'm gonna eat your heart. And I'm also wondering, how did he know that he wanted to eat these people? Like, what? How do you get a taste for human flesh and organ? Like, how does that happen? That's one of the weirdest parts of the story to me, honestly. I don't know. I had mixed feelings about the show. I think the acting was very good, very well portrayed. It told a good story. It's just really sad that the story is real, and that's what made me feel. It still makes me feel weird that like it was entertaining. it makes me feel bad. Some of it was fictitious, but the overall story is not, and that's what makes me feel bad. But at the end of the show, they did show like all of the victims, their names and everything, paying respects, and you know, I thought that was really nice. Netflix definitely should have, like, you know, contacted the families, in my opinion. They should have, you know, I feel like some of the money off the show should go to them. But I don't know. Y'all let me know how y'all feel about it. Do you feel like this show should have been created at all? Do you think that it's gonna make other people become serial killers, or continue doing it if they're already doing it and finding ways how to hide? And I've been talking for too long. I'm gonna wrap this up. Thank you for checking out my video. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And be back for my next video.